Bashmaya Net Kadashmak Tiete Malkutak Dewe Tavianek Aikanat Bashmaya of Bona Bashmaya Net Kadashmak Tiete Malkutak Dewe Tavianek Aikanat Bashmaya of Bona
Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Ve'ahaveta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. I want to say hi to everyone out there. Give me a shout out to you all. I hope that you pray and that you had a wonderful week as we come into this Shabbat here. Like I said, I'd like to wish everyone that's out there, all my brothers and sisters, I hope that you've kept your Sabbath and you prepare for this Shabbat as we go into the Shabbat. And before I do, I'd like to also give a shout out to my other fellow followers out there too, like Christian Truthers, who's actually broadcasting right now. We also have Parable of the Vineyard, and there's also Sister Shalom. So don't always just listen to me, but I always tell everybody that you should be also listening to other people out there, because there are times that you will hear something and maybe it wasn't for you at this time, but maybe it's for somebody else. So you should always listen to more than one person. Just like as me, even too, I always listen to more than one person too, to even better me, myself. You know, iron sharpens iron. So with that being said, of course, I like to pray for, that this message that you will hear tonight, that the Prince of Peace will be able to touch your heart and show you some other scriptures that you have not even learned about through this time. And tonight's message is going to be on who was really born on December 25th. And we're going to take a little deeper look into this to see who it was and where do we lead from there, based on the, what you've been probably grown up from or heard from other people, or even your your past or friends, or even your parents might have taught you. So we're going to learn something here. And with that being said, I'd like to wish us this prayer, and it says, "Our beloved one, come to meet the bride. Beloved, come to greet the Shabbat. Keep and remember a single command. The only God caused us to hear. The eternal is one. God's name is one for honor and glory and praise. Beloved, come with me to meet the Shabbat forever, a fountain of blessings. Still it flows as from the start, the last of days for which the first was made. Beloved, awake, awake, your light has come. Arise, shine, awake and sing. The eternal's glory dawns upon you, beloved. Enter in peace, O crown of your husband. Enter in gladness. Enter in joy. Come to the people that keeps its faith. Enter, O bride, enter, O bride, beloved. So, what does that mean to all of us? Think about this. If you go back into Scripture, at the end in Revelations, it talks about the final bridal groom marriage, and the bride is you, and the groom's going to be, our Messiah, who's going to come back and take his fellow brides with him, back with him to, to that paradise where we will be with him, and we'll be praising him at all times. So it says, you should awake, awake. So if you're in the Shabbat and you're following the Shabbat, you have already prepared and you've already lit your candles, as tonight we have lit ours already, and we've already took our cup of wine, and we already broke bread too. So I ask you this time right now that if you haven't, you should have already done this with your family, or if your spouse is not there, you should have done it yourself. And with this, I'd like to pray for all of you out there that you may be touched with this word. So, our Father, as we come together right now, Father, I pray for everyone that they may have an ear to hear and a heart to listen, Father. Allow their minds to be open. Allow the Shabbat, the peace, the Prince of Peace, to come to them, each one of them right now, Father, that they may be touched through this word, Father. I ask this right now, through your Holy Son's name, that everybody be touched tonight, Father. If it's not during this message, but maybe later on when they re-listen to this message, Father, that they will be touched, Father. And if they're not touched now, Father, when they lay their head down, Father, give them that time of peace, Father, that they may be able to have that peace in you, Father, and they have more of a relationship with you. I ask for this right now in your Holy Son's name. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen. Oops. Okay. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right. So it says, who was really born on December 25th? And we're going to take a look at this. So from this, if you think back to your Christianity religion, you will see that Christianity in a whole teaches that Jesus Christ was born on December 25th. But if you go to the actual Bible, it does not even say December 25th. So how did they come out with December 25th if it doesn't say December 25th? That's a good question. And hopefully we'll be able to answer that question tonight. And this all revolves around even the nativity set. As you can see this picture here, it has, Jesus Christ that was born. And of course, you can see Mary, and you can see Joseph. You can see even the three wise men as they came out through to Jerusalem, and you see the North Star here. So these are the key points that I want you to think about as we go below. It says we have the three wise men. Remember, they brought silver and gold. There was a king. We'll learn about the king. There's the star. And remember, they escaped from one place to another place. And like I said, most churches, most congregations, even pastors or even other teachers, they teach that, in Sunday school that Jesus Christ was born on December 25th. But was he really born on December 25th? Or who was actually born on December 25th? And we're going to take a look through here right now. So the story of birth of Christ, it says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judah during the time of King Herod. So we have King Herod. Magi from the east came to the Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who was born King of the Jews? He saw in the star in the east and half came to worship him. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem was with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. In Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written, "But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people of Israel." Then Herod called the Magi, or the magician as it was called, secretly, and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went out of their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child was with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, incense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. And this is quoted actually in Matthew 2, 1 through 12. So, as you can see, this is the basic story that talks about Jesus Christ being born. And somehow Christianity put this together with December 25th. As the actual holiday, and that he was born. But as you can read here, it wasn't even born on December 25th. So now let's look at the nativity. The nativity of Jesus Christ, the birth of Jesus Christ, is the basis for Christianity holiday of Christmas, and is described in the Gospels of Luke and Matthew. The two accounts differ. So we have two different accounts, but agree that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. So we know that he was born in Bethlehem, in Judea, during the region of the reign of King Herod the Great. His mother Mary was married to a man named Joseph, who was descended from King David and was not in his biblical father, or his biological father. So we know right here is saying that wasn't even the biological father, which meant that he wasn't from the seed of man, but from the seed of the Father. And that his birth was caused by a divine intervention. See, Luke's version says the birth took place during a Roman census, mentions an announcement to the shepherds by angels, presentation of Yeshua or Jesus in the temple, and gives the name of the angel who announces it in the coming birth to Mary. The archangel Gabriel announces it, and Matthew's version mentions the arrival of the Magi, the flight into Egypt by the family, and the massacre of the innocents by King Herod. The consensus of scholars is that both Gospels were written about 75 to 85 AD, and while it is possible that one account might be based on another, or that the two share common source material, the majority conclusion is that the two nativity narratives are independent of each other. In Christ's theology, the nativity marks the birth of Jesus in fulfillment of the divine will of God to save the world from sin. The artistic depiction of the nativity has been an important subject of the Christian artists. Since the 4th century, artistic depictions of the nativity scene since the 13th century have emphasized the humility of Jesus and promoted a more tender image of him as a major turning point from the earlier Lord and Master image, mirroring changes in the common approaches taken by the Christian pastoral ministry. The nativity plays a major role in the Christian liturgical year. Christian congregations of the Western tradition, including the Catholic Church, the Western Rite Orthodox, Evangelical Communion, and many other Protestants, such as the Moravian Church, began observing the season of Advent 4 Sundays before Christmas, the traditional feast day of the birth, which falls on December 25th. Christmas on the Eastern Orthodox Church and Oriental Orthodox Church observes a singular similar season, sometimes called Advent, but also called the Nativity Fast, which begins 40 days before Christmas. Some Eastern Orthodox Christians, Greeks and Syrians, celebrate Christmas on December 25th. Other Orthodox celebrate Christmas on the Gregorian calendar, January 7th. As a result of their churches continue to follow the Julian calendar rather than the modern day Gregorian calendar. So we already see that there is a not a straight consensus on when he was born, and that's because we read, and it doesn't give you an exact date, but they started going with the traditional feast date of which was December 25th, and then even some places said no, this is January 7th, and then some said no, it's 40 days prior. So there was no set date of when he was born. But we want to kind of look at and see who was actually born on December 25th, and get an idea from there. So as we look, we'll see that Terah, okay, he was he was known as the Wanderer. He's a biblical figure in the book of Genesis. He's the son of Noah, the son of Sharag, and the father of Abraham. All descendants of Shem, son of Apocryphad. Terah is mentioned in the Hebrew Bible in Genesis 11:26 and 27. Also in Joshua 24:2 and 1 Chronicles 1:17 through 27 in the New Testament also. Most of what is told about Terah is recorded in Genesis 11:26 through 28. Terah's father was Noah, son of Sharag, descendants of Shem. So we know that he was a descendant of Shem, okay? Then they and many other ancestors were apathetical. Terah had 3 sons, Abraham, Haran, and Noah. Okay, Noah had daughters. Sarai was also his daughter-in-law, wife of Abraham. The entire family, including grandchildren, lived in Ur of the Chaldees. Okay, Ur, we're going to look at that also too, because Ur is also mentioned as in, it can mean land, or some people say, well, maybe this was, the actual name, or it was Nara or Haran, so we're going to take a look at that, okay? It says, one of his grandchild was Lot. Okay, so we know that, one of his grandchild was Lot, and whose father was Haran. So Haran was, Lot's child. Okay, Lot was Haran's father. Yeah, or Haran was Lot's father. Okay, and Haran had died before the family left Ur. Okay, Terah's son Abraham had an encounter with God, who directed him to take the entire family, leave Ur, and move to the land of Canaan. Terah coordinated the journey, intended to go to this new land, but stopped in the city of Haran, along the way where he died at the age of 205. According to rabbinical tradition, Terah was wicked. Terah was an idol maker. Terah, who should have been the master of Nimrod, his slave, became the slave of Nimrod. Okay, so, and actually, we'll probably, I think I mentioned it here, but, okay, Terah was Nimrod's, basically, his, what do you call it? It would be like our chief of staff. So you have the president, and then you would have the chief of staff. So he was kind of like in control of all the army. So he was kind of like one of the top generals for Nimrod. Okay, it says, like the other people in that country, Terah believed that Nimrod received his kingdom as a gift from the gods, as well as was himself a god. Terah was prepared to serve Nimrod with all his heart. So we see that Terah, like I said, he followed Nimrod because he thought he was a god, because he had received all this stuff. So he figured, if he's a god, I'm going to follow him so I can get everything too. Well, Nimrod. Well, who was Nimrod? It says he was a biblical figure described as a king in the land of Shinar. He was according to the book of Genesis and the book of Chronicles, the son of Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah. The Bible states that he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Okay, when they say he was a mighty hunter, he was hunting humans. Okay, he wasn't hunting beasts. So we have to make a clarification there, because most people think when you hunt, you're hunting animals, but he wasn't really hunting animals. He was hunting people. Okay, he began to be mighty in the earth. Extra biblical traditions associated him with the Tower of Babel to his reputation as a king who was rebellious against God. And if you look here, you can see that these are the statues that Terah would make for Nimrod basically to bow down to his God. And we're going to learn later on that there was 12 different idols that he created, or 12 different gods, which come from the 12 zodiacs, which was very interesting to find out. And we're looking at Terah. So this is Terah's children. Okay, we see Abraham. Okay, this is the Abraham that we know of. Original Abraham is the common parsha of the three Abrahamic religions in Judaism. He is the founding father of the covenant, the special relationship between the Jewish people and God. In Christianity, he is the prototype of all believers, Jewish or Gentile. And in Islam, he is seen as a link in the chain of the prophets that begins with Adam and the Kolamites and Muhab. And then we have Noah. Okay, in the account of Terah's family mentioned in Genesis 11:26-32, Noah is listed as the son of Terah amongst the two other brothers, Abraham and Haran. His grandfather was Noah first, the son of Sharag. Noah married the daughter of his brother Haran. Malacca is his niece. They may all have been born and raised in the city of Ura. So they don't know if they were all born there or if they were raised there. So this was up in the air. They don't really know yet. Biblical accounts stated that Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his birth in Ura on the Chaldeans in Genesis 11:28. Well, how did he die? It really didn't mention how did he die, but we'll find out how he died later on. And Haran, or Aaron, is a man in the book of Genesis in the Hebrew Bible. He died. So wait a second. So we just said that Haran died, but we talk about it, up here. So this was getting kind of confusing because it says Haran died before his father. So we know that Haran died in his, in Genesis. In Chaldeans, he was the son of Terah and the brother of Abraham. Though through his son of Lot, Haran was the ancestor of the Moabites and Ammonites, and through his daughter Malacca, he was the ancestor of the Hamarians. After Haran died in Ura of the Chaldeans before his father Terah, his family traveled towards Canaan, the promised land. However, Terah stopped at Charan, or Aran, that's the city, and settled there, as did Nara and Malacca, whereas Lot accompanied Abraham and the others onwards to Canaan. So here it says that he went on, they separated, the family separated. Sarah, or Saria, is a Masriah in the Hebrew Bible, who was the wife of Abraham and the mother of Isaac. She was also Abraham's sister, or his half-sister. The Hebrew name Sarah can be translated as the noble woman. So if we look in the book of Jubilees, this is in chapter 12, and we're going to read this here. It says, in the fourth Jubilee on the 40th of Jubilee, in the 2nd week, in the 17th year thereof, Abraham took his wife, and her name was Sarai, and the daughter of his father, and she became his wife. And Haran, his brother, took himself a wife in the 3rd year, the 3rd week, and she bare him a son in the 17th year of this week, and he called himself named Lot. And Nerar, his brother, took himself a wife in the 16th year of the life of Abraham, that is the 4th week, in the 4th year of Abraham rose by the night and burned the house of the idols, and he burned all that was in the house, and no man knew it. And they arose in the night and sought to save their gods from the midst of the fire. Haran, so we got Haran, or hasted in to save them, but the fire flamed over him, and he was burnt in the fire, and he died in Ur or Chaldees before Terah his father. So while Terah, Haran, and Norah went to go back to try to save the idols, Haran ran inside to save the idols in front of his father, and he ended up passing away because of probably smoke inhalation. So we see that he died in front of his father. Let's see, and then so in front of his father, and they buried him in Ur on the Chaldees. And the Terah went out forth from from Chaldees, he and his sons, to go into the land of Lebanon and into the land of Canaan. And he dwelt in the land of Haran. And Abraham dwelt with Terah his father in Haran 2 weeks of years. And in the 6th week, in the 5th year of the 1951 AM, Abraham sat up through the night on the new moon on the 7th month to observe the stars from the evening to the morning, in order to see what would be the character of the year, and with regards to the rains. So if you go back into Genesis, it says that we will look at the signs that are in the sky, so we will see the moons. So this he was doing to see when the new moon was starting. So this would tell you when the new month would begin. And so this was to let him know of the rainy season and the rains and stuff like that, it says. In the evening to morning, in order to see, so the rains. And he was alone, and he sat and observed. And a word came into his heart, and he said, all the signs of the stars and the signs of the moon and the sun are all in the land of the Lord. Why do I search them out? If he desires, he causes it to rain morning and evening. And if he desires it, he withholds it. And in the morning, and all things are in his hand. And he prayed that night and said, my God, God most high, thou alone art my God, and thee thy dominion have I chosen. Thou hast created all things, and all things that are in the work of thy hands. Deliver me from thy hands of evil spirits, who have dominion over the thoughts of men's heart, and let them not lead me astray from thee, my God. Establish thou me and my seed forever, that we go not astray henceforth forevermore. So from what Abraham is saying right here to God, he's like, God, he's asking him, why do I look to the sky, to see these signs? You control them. So teach me not to look there, so I don't follow evil spirits, because even the devil comes and he will do, things too, to make you think this is God. So this is what he's saying, telling the God, you have control over it, right? No matter what, even if it, if you control the stars, you control the moon, the lights, the rain. So really, I don't need to be looking up there. I just look to you, and you tell me when it's going to rain, or when it's going to get dark. And he said, shall I return unto you, or Charlebus, who seek my face, that I may return to them, and I to remain here in this place? The right path before thee prosper in thy hands of thy servant, that he may fulfill it, and that I may not walk in the deceitfulness of my heart, O my God. And he made an end of the speaking and praying. And behold, the word of the Lord was sent to him through me, saying, Get thee up from thy country, and go, and from the kindred, and from the house of thy father, unto a land which I will show thee, and I shall make thee a great and numerous nation, and I will bless thee, and I will make thy name and great, and thou shalt be blessed in the earth. And thee shall all families in the earth be blessed. And I will bless that all bless thee, and curse them that all curse thee. And I will be a God to thee, and thy son, and to the sons of all thy seed. Fear not, from henceforth unto all generations of the earth, and thy God. And the Lord God opened up his mouth and his ears, and they may hear, and speak with his mouth, and with the language which has been revealed, for it had ceased from the mouths of all the children of men, the day of the overflow of Babel. And I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips, and I began to speak with him in Hebrew, in the tongue of the creation. So we already see right here, it says Hebrew is the tongue which the Father used to speak. So if you ever wanted to know that, learn Hebrew, and you will learn, and you will get back to the garden. And he took the books of his father, and these were written in Hebrew, and he transcribed them, and he began from henceforth to study them. And I made known to him that which he could not understand. And he studied them during the 6 rainy months, and it came to pass in the 7th year of the 6th week that he spoke to his father and informed him. And he would leave Haran to go into the land of Canaan to see it, and return to him. And Terah his father said unto him, Go in peace. May the eternal God make thy path straight, and the Lord be with thee, and protected thee from all evil, and grant unto thee grace, mercy, and favor before those who see thee, and may none of the children of men have power over thee to harm thee. Go in peace. So if we look in the book of Yashar, in chapter 7:22, right here, it says, And Peleg his brother begot Yen, and Yen begot Sharag, and Sharag begot Norah, and Norah begot Terah, and Terah was 38 years old, and he begot Haran and Norah. Okay, and in chapter 7-49, it says, And Terah, the son of Norah, prince of Nimrod, so he was a prince, like I said, he was the prince of Nimrod's host, was in those days very great in the sight of the king and his subject. And then the king, princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. So he was very high. And Terah took a wife, and her name was Amethil, and the daughter of Cornebio. And the wife of Terah conceived and bare him a son in those days. Terah was 70 years old when he begot him. And Terah called the name of his son that was born to him Abraham, because the king had raised him in those days and dignified him above all his princes that were with him. In the book of Yashar in chapter 8, and it was the night that Abraham was born. So remember, it was that night that Abraham was born that all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurers came in, ate and drank in the house on Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night. And when all the wise men and the conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes toward the heaven that night to look at the stars, and they saw, and behold, a very large star came from the east and ran in the heavens, and he swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heaven. And all the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished at the sight. And the sages understood this matter, and they knew its importance. And they said to each other, This only betokens the child that has been born to Terah this night, who will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth. He and his children forever, he and his seed will slay great kings and inherit their lands. And his wise men, conjurers, went home that night. In the morning all these wise men and conjurers rose up early and assembled in an appointed house, and they spoke and said to each other, Behold, the sight that we saw last night is hidden from the king. It was not been made known to him. And should this thing be known to the king in the later days, he will say to us, Why have you concealed this matter from me? And then we shall all suffer death. Therefore, now let us go and tell the king this sight which we saw, and the interpretation thereof. And they remain clear. And they did so. And they all went to the king, bowed down to him to the ground, and they said, May the king live, may the king live. We heard that a son was born to Terah, the son of Norah, the prince of thy host. And we yesternight came to this house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. And why thy servants went out from the house of Terah to go out to our respective homes to abide there for the night, we lifted up our eyes to heaven, and we saw a great star coming from the east, and the same star ran with great speed and swallowed up the 4 great stars from the 4 sides of heaven. And thy servants were astonished at the sight which we saw, and were greatly terrified, and we made our judgment upon thy sight, and knew by our wisdom the proper interpretation thereof, that this thing applies to the children that is born to Terah, who will grow up and multiply greatly and become powerful and kill all the kings of the earth, inherit all their lands. He is the seed forever. And now, our Lord and King, behold, we have truly acquainted thee with what we have seen concerning this child. If it has seemed good to the king to give his father a value for this child, he will slay him before he shall grow up and increase the land, and his evil increase against us, that we and our children perish through his evil. And the king heard their words, and they seemed good in his sight. And he sent and called Terah, and Terah came before the king. And the king said to Terah, I have been told that a son was yesternight born to thee, and after his manner was observed in the heavens at this birth. And now therefore give me the child, that we may slay him before his evil springs up against us. And I will give thee for his value thy house full of silver and gold. And Terah answered the king and said to him, My lord and king, I have heard thy words, and thy servant shall do all that is his king desire. But my lord and king, I will tell thee what happened to me yesternight, that I may say with advice to the king, give his servants. And thee will I answer the king upon what he has just spoken. And his king said, Speak. And Terah said to the king, Aon, son of Morai, came to me yesternight, saying, Give me unto me the great and beautiful horse that the king gave thee, and I will give thee silver and gold, straw and provider for this value. And I said to him, Wait till I see the king concerning thy words, and behold, whatever the king saith, that will I do. And now, my lord king, behold, I made this thing known to thee, that the advice which my king was given unto the servant, that I will follow. And the king heard the words of Terah in his anger, and was kindled, and he considered him in the light of a fool. So he knew he was lying already. But the king answered Terah, and he said to him, Art thou so silly, ignorant, or deceitful, understanding to do these things, to give thy beautiful horse for silver and gold, for even for straw and provender? Art thou so short of silver and gold that thou should do these things, because thou canst not abstain straw and provider to feed thy horse? What is silver and gold to thee, straw and provider, that thou shalt give away thy fine horse, which I can give thee, like which there is none to be had unto the whole earth? And the king left up, speaking to Terah, answered the king, saying, Like unto thee, this has the king spoken to his servant. I beseech thee, my lord and king, what is this which thou didst say unto me, saying, Give thy son that me slay him, and I will give thee silver and gold for this value. What shall I do with thy silver and gold after thy death of my son? Who shall I inherit me? Surely then all my death and silver and gold will return to my king, who gave it. And when the king heard the words of Terah and the parable which he brought concerning the king, it grieved him greatly, and he was vexed at this thing, and his anger burned within him. And Terah saw that the anger of the king was kindled against him, and he answered the king, saying, All that I have is the king's power. Whatever the king desireth to do to his servant, that let him do. Ye, even my son, he is the king's power, without the value in exchange. He and his 2 brothers that are older than he. The king said to Terah, No, but I will purchase thy younger son for a price. And Terah answered the king, saying, I beseech thee, my lord and king, to thy servant, speak a word before thee, and let the king hear the word of his servant. And Terah said, Let my king give me 3 days time till I consider this matter within myself, consult with my family concerning the word of my king. And he pressed the king greatly to agree to this. And the king hearkened to Terah, and he did so. And he gave him 3 days time. And Terah went out from the king's presence, and he came to his family and spoke to them all thy words to the king. And the people were greatly afraid. So we see that basically he asked for the king to give him some time to think about this. You know, does he want to give up his son for the silver and gold? Or what's he going to do? And it was the 3rd day, and the king sent to Terah, saying, Send me thy son for a price, as I spoke to thee, and thou shalt not do this. And I will send and slay all that hast in thy house, so thou shalt not even have a dog remaining. And Terah hastened as the thing was urgent from the king, and he took a child from one of his servants, which is the handmaid had born to him that day. And Terah brought the child to the king and received the value for him. And the Lord was with Terah in this matter, that the Nimrod might not cause Abraham's death. And the king took the child from Terah with all his might, and dashed his head and to the ground, for he thought it had been Abraham. And it was concealed from him. From that day it was forgotten by the king, as it was will of providence not to suffer Abraham's death. And Terah took Abraham his son secretly, together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave, and he brought them their provisions monthly. And the Lord was with Abraham in the cave, and he grew up. And Abraham was in the cave 10 years, and the king and his princes, soothers and sages, thought that the king had killed Abraham. So they thought that they killed Abraham, but actually he was put into a cave, is what it says here. In chapter 9 it says, And Aaron the son of Terah, Abraham's oldest brother, took a wife in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her, and the wife of Haran conceived and bare a son, and he called his name Lot. So we see Lot was being born, and she conceived again and bare a daughter, and she conceived and called her name Milcah. And she again conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her name Sarai. So we have Milcah and Sarai born. Haran was 42 years old when he begot Sarai, which was in the 10th year in the life of Abraham. In those days Abraham and his mother and nurse went out of the cave, as the king and his subjects had forgotten to the affair of Abraham. And when Abraham came out of the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with them to learn the instructions of the Lord. And his ways no man knew where Abraham was. And Abraham served Noah and Shem and his son for a long time. And Abraham was in Noah's house for 39 years, and Abraham knew the Lord. from 3 years old, and he went in the ways of the Lord until the day of his death, as Noah and his sons Shem had taught him. And all the sons of the earth in those days greatly transgressed against the Lord, and they rebelled against him, and they served other gods, and they forgot the Lord who had created them in the earth. And the inhabitants of the earth made unto themselves at the time every man in his god, gods of wood and stone, which could neither speak nor deliver, and the sons of men served them, and they became their gods. And the king and all the servants in Terah with all the household were the first of those that served gods of wood and stone. And Terah had 12 gods. See, so he had 12 gods, the large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year. And he served each one monthly, and every month Terah would bring his meat offering and drink offering to his gods. Thus did Terah all the days, and all the generations were wicked in the sight of the Lord. And they thus made every man in his god, but they forsook the Lord had created them. And there was not a man found in those days in the whole earth who knew the Lord, for they served each man in his own god, except Noah and his household, and all those who were under his counsel knew that the Lord in those days. So, as you see here, it talks about the 12 gods representing the 12 months of the year. This is where that came from, the picture earlier. And also, and continue in chapter 9, and Abraham the son of Terah was waxing the great in those days in the house of Noah, and no man knew it, and the Lord was with him. And the Lord gave Abraham an understanding in heart, and he knew all that the works of the generation were vain, and all their gods were vain, and there were none were able. And Abraham saw the sun shining upon the earth, and Abraham said unto himself, Surely now is the sun that shines upon the earth is God, and him will I serve. And Abraham served the sun in that day, and he prayed to him. And when evening came, the sun set as usual, and Abraham said with himself, Surely this cannot be God. So this is where it talks about earlier in the opening scripture that we talked about, how Abraham was sitting and he prayed. And Abraham still continued to speak to himself. And who is he who made the heavens, and he the earth, who created upon earth? Where is he? And night darkened over him, and he lifted up his eyes toward the west, the north, the south, and the east. And he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day became dark. And Abraham saw the stars and the moon before him, and he said, Surely this is the God who created the whole earth, as well as man. And behold, these his servants are gods around him. And Abraham served the moon and prayed to it all night. And in the morning, when it was light, and the sun shone upon the earth as usual, Abraham saw all things that the Lord God had made upon the earth. And Abraham said to himself, Surely these are not gods that made the earth and all mankind, but these are the servants of gods. And Abraham remained in the house of Noah, and there knew the Lord and his ways. And he served the Lord all day in his life. And all the generations forgot the Lord, and served other gods of wood and stone, and rebelled all their days. And King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control, and all the earth was under one tongue and words of union. So that's where the Babylon comes in, when they built the Babylon. And Joshua 11:11 starts out, it says, And they served with 12 years, and they gave him a yearly tax. And at the time they died, Nerah, son of Sharag, in the 49th year of the life of Abraham, son of Terah, and in the 15th year of the life of Abraham, son of Terah, Abraham came forth from the house of Noah, and went to his father's house. And Abraham knew the Lord, and he went in his ways, instructions, and the Lord his God was with him. And Terah his father was in those days still captain of the house of King of Nimrod, and he still followed strange gods. And Abraham came to his father and saw 12 gods standing there in their temple. And the anger of Abraham was kindled when he saw these images in his father's house. And Abraham said, As the Lord liveth, these images shall not remain in my father's house. So shall the Lord, who created me, do unto me in these days. Time I do not break them all. And Abraham went from them, and his anger burned with him. And Abraham hastened and went from the chamber to his father's outer court, and he found his father sitting in the court, and all his servants with him. And Abraham came and sat before him. And Abraham asked his father, saying, Father, tell me, where is God, who created heaven and earth, and all the sons of men upon the earth, who created thee and me? And Terah answered his son. Abraham said, Behold, those who created us are with us in the house. And Abraham said to his father, My Lord, shew them to me, I pray thee. And Terah brought Abraham into the chamber in the inner court, and Abraham saw, and behold, a whole room was full of gods, wood and stone, 12 great images, and others less than they without number. And Terah said to his son, Behold, these are they which made all the sea upon the earth, which created me and thee, and all mankind. And Terah bowed down to his gods. And he then went away from them, and Abraham his son went away with him. And when Terah had spoken to the king concerning Haran his son, the king ordered Haran to be seized with Abraham. And they brought them both, Abraham and Haran his brother, to cast them into the fire, and all the inhabitants of the land, and the king's servant. So we see Haran, okay, in here, and Abraham being casted into a fire, and all the inhabitants of the land, king's servants, and the princes, and all the women, and the little ones were there standing that day over them. And the king's servants took Abraham and his brother, and they stripped them of all their clothing, excepting their lower garments, which were upon them. And they bound their hands and feet with linen cords, and the servants of the king lifted them up and cast them both in the furnace. Wait a second. You know what this sounds like? This almost sounds like, what's that, bingo, the three guys that they casted into the fire. So this is an interesting part, because the Lord Abraham, and he compassioned over him, and the Lord came down and delivered Abraham from the fire, and he was not burned, but all the cords which they found bound him were burned, while Abraham remained and walked about in the fire, and Haran died when they cast him into the fire. So here we see that Haran died when the king tossed Abraham and Haran into the fire. Whereas earlier it talked about Abraham burnt down the house with all the gods, and Haran ran into the house when he died. You know, so this is kind of interesting concept that we see here. Okay. And Haran died, and they cast him into fire, and it was burned ashes. And for his heart was not perfect with the Lord. Remember, Haran was bound down to the other gods, so that's why he died, and Abraham didn't die. And those men who cast him into the fire, the flame of the fire spread over them, and they were burned, and the 12 men of them died. And Abraham walked in the midst of the fire 3 days and 3 nights. Ooh, this is, see, another biblical thing of 3 days and 3 nights, remember? And all the servants of the king saw him walking in the fire. And they came and told the king, saying, Behold, we have seen Abraham walking about in the midst of the fire. Even the lower garments which are upon him are not burned, but the cord which he was bound is burned. And when the king heard their words, his heart fainted, and he would not believe them. So he sent other faithful princes to see the matter, and they went and saw him and told it to the king. And the king rose to go and see, and he saw Abraham walking to and fro in the midst of the fire. And he saw Haran's body burnt, and the kings wondered greatly. And the king ordered Abraham to be taken out from the fire, and his servants approached to take him out. And they could not, for the fire was around about, and the flame ascending toward them from the furnace. The king's servants fled from it, and the king rebuked them, saying, "Make haste and bring Abraham out of the fire, that you shall not die." And their servants and the king again approached to bring Abraham out of the flames, came up upon them and burnt their faces, so that 8 of them died. And when the king saw that his servants could not approach the fire, lest they should be burned, the king called to Abraham, "O servant of thy God, who is in the heaven, go forth from the midst, the fire, and come hither before me." And Abraham hearkened to the voice of the king. And he went forth from the fire, and came and stood before the king. And when Abraham came out, the king and all his servants saw Abraham coming before the king with his lower garments upon him, for they were not burned, but the cord which he was bound was burned. And the king said to Abraham, "How is thou was not burned in the fire?" And Abraham said to the king, "The God of heaven and earth, of whom I trust, who has all in the power, he delivered me from the fire into which thou cast me." And Haran, the brother of Abraham, was burned to ashes. They sought for his body, and they found it consumed. And Haran was 82 years old when he died in the fire of Kasdim. And the king of princes, inhabitants of the land, seeing that Abraham was delivered for the fire, they came out and bowed down to Abraham. And Abraham said to them, "Do not bow down to me, but bow down to the God of the world, who made you, and served him, God in his ways, for it is he who delivered me from out of this fire, and it is he who created the souls and spirits of all men, formed man in his mother's womb, and brought him forth into the world, and it is he who will deliver those who trust in him for all pain." And in 44 it says, "And that time Nahor and Abraham took themselves wives and daughters of their brother Haran, and the wife of Nahor, his Malachah, the name of Abram's wife, was Sarah. And Sarah was the wife of Abraham, was barren, and she had no offspring in those days." So, remember, Terran to a Hebrew root meaning either moon or month, according to the vocational Yerath, moon, as it says here in Joshua 10:13, and also in 1 Kings 6:37. Schaeffer, between 1929 and 1939, uncovered numerous tablets written in a language now called Ugaritic, after the ancient name of the town in North Syria where it was spoken. Among these cuneiform texts are made documents devoted to religious matters. From them we learn that North Syria, the name of the moon god was Terah. So the name Terah meant moon, and he was like a god. They lifted him up to God. Remember that. The man Terah was a Marian, a blood relation to North Syrian peoples, and their language, to a degree at least, was as his also. There came therefore be no question here of an accidental resemblance between the words' difference, origin, and meaning. The name of the moon god was Terah, and the name of Abraham's father was Terah. It can only be that Terah was considered to be under the special protection of that deity. So Terah followed the moon god. And that's why we saw earlier, okay? And that's where Nimrod comes from. All right. Another piece of evidence fitting nicely into this picture comes from the fact that the patron of God of the city of Ura was the moon god Nannar. There was, according to Woolley, numerous temples and shrines and concentrated into the other members of the pantheon, but to Nannar, the city itself is dedicated. The heart of the town was set apart as the moon god's sanctuary. The great ziggurat, or temple tower, was his, and although other gods had their shrines within the sacred enclosure, they were only there as attendants on the majesty of Nannar. He was the king of Ura, the Lord of heaven. It was from this same city that the Bible tells us Terah and his family came in Genesis 11:28 and 31. Moreover, from the written documents of Sumerian Ura names appear compound with the name of Nanner, and it says right here, the possibility therefore exists that Terah was called Nanner, and a Sumerian, but Terah was by Syria's Palestinians. In Genesis 11:31, the recording of a migration of Terah and his family, with the exception of Haran, who had died at Ura, is recounted. At this point, a future piece of evidence is derived, and Terah took Abraham his son, and the Lot the son of Aaron his son, Sarai and his daughter-in-law, and sons Abraham wife. They went forth with them of Ura and Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came into Haran and dwelt there. Now it is both fascinating and interesting that this city of Haran was a seat of the worship of Sin and the moon god, very ancient times. And it says, and this is in Flavius Josephus, the Antiquities of the Jews, chapter 6. It says, now Abraham had two brethren, Nerah and Haran. Of these, Haran left a son, Lot, as also Sarah and Malachah, his daughter, and they died among the Chaldeans. In a city, the Chaldeans called Ura, and his monument is shown to this day. These married their nieces, and Nabor married Malachah, and Abraham married Sarah. Now Terah, hating Chaldah on account of his mourning of Ura, they all removed to Haran and Mesopotamia, where Terah died and was buried, when he lived to be 205 years old. So this is that place, Ura, Chaldees, that it talks about. They actually found a lot of idols there. Now, this is just giving you an example. This is just the first one that I pulled up. This is January. It means Janus, a month. Janus means Genesis month, and became the first month of the year, with Numa Pompeius and the Roman king added it in February to the calendar. Numa also removed the start of the year from March to January. So we see that the time changed. Janus is the Roman god of the beginnings and the endings. He is also the god of gateways, gates, doors, and doorways. The word janitor is derived from Janus. Saxons called the month Monath, meaning the wolf month. So to recap, so who was really born on December 25th? If you go back and you remember, we see that actually during that time, it talks about, Abraham being born. There was the sun, not the sun, the star that came over. We see that the three wise men came out. They brought silver and gold. And we also see that, at that time, the king, and who escaped? Abraham escaped during that time. So there's a possibility that, with this being said, that Abraham was the one that was being born at that time. But Christianity decided to try to take these and combine them together to make it as one who was being born. So with that being said, that's something to think about, because we see the three wise men come out, and then they wanted to bring silver and gold. And we see that from Terah, who mentions it to the king, and they were like, oh, they were trying to bring me silver and gold, but they wanted to buy, my horse so I can, hay from them. So, and then the king, we see the king, he wanted to kill Abraham, just like the king wanted to kill, Yeshua or Jesus Christ, as they know, when he was born. He wanted to kill him too. So we see that, and we look at this, and we also see the star. This is where you will hear about the Star of David, which is like the Pentagon, the 8th star. That's you will see most Jews follow. That's where they get the Star of David from. So now, with this, we also see that they escaped to another place. Abraham escaped into the cave, and he supposedly hid there until it was time to come back. So, with that being said, I want you to think about this during that time as you go through this Shabbat, and think about who was actually born on December 25th. Was it Jesus Christ, or some people know him as Yeshua, or was this actually David? Or not David, Abraham, I'm sorry. Abraham being born. You know, this is a good question because we have the almost exact same story being told here than, that was taught earlier before. And here is my brother, Christian Truthers, Justin Bass. He actually put out a good video that talks more into this. It's called Before He Was Abraham, 2019. There's a great video. You should go watch that. It talks more into a little bit more depth than what I go into it, than what I did here tonight. But I think you should look into his video. He's got some really good videos, and so does Parable of Vineyard. Check them out too. And also, if you're not a follower of them, follow them too, just as you say, follow me. And if you like this video, make sure to click on that you like it and subscribe and become a subscriber so that you're always receiving updates, because sometimes, time changes and things will be pushed either earlier or a little bit later, just depending on the Father, on His will. I cannot say when He wants me to do things, but I follow the Spirit, and if the Spirit says to go a little bit later, I will go a little bit later. But normally the message is put out between 8:30 and 9:30 Eastern Standard Time here in the United States. So if you really want to know more, become a subscriber and subscribe, and make sure you click on the bell so that way you get those updates and you know when they're coming out. Okay, and before I go, I like to again pray for everybody that they may have peace tonight as we go our separate ways. Our Father, we thank you for this word that you brought us tonight. We lift up to you right now, Father. Whatever we said tonight, Father, if it is not in your word, Father, that it will fall to the side, Father. And Father, I pray for people to have open ears and open minds into their heart, Father. Allow the Prince of Peace to come to them and show them, Father, what may be the truth, Father. Allow it to come to them, Father. As sometimes you say you speak in parables, Father, and that allow this to be a parable to them if they're not ready to receive it now, Father. Allow that time to come when they can receive your message, Father. I ask you for anybody that needs healing out there right now, Father, that they receive that healing, Father. And I pray it over each one of them right now, Father, as they go their separate ways and they lay their hand down tonight, Father, that they will receive that peace, Father. And they, wherever they go, they allow them speak the truth to each person that they go into tonight, Father. Or wherever they go, Father, that they, the day after tomorrow or through the week, Father, allow them to be blessed. And I pray that over each household and each family and each congregation right now, Father, that is doing your work. Allow them to continue to be blessed. And I pray that right now in your Son's name, in Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.